Welcome back to the Unacceptable News. I'm your host, Justin Bush. Today we're going to talk about a UFO case that happened in 2007. Before we get into this case, we really just want to talk about the quality of these sightings, what these objects will look like, how they function. Recently in the news, there's been a lot of media from the government. The To the Stars Academy released information about UFOs about 6-7 years ago, 2017, 2018, and these videos show these anomalous objects recorded by military technology over the course of a few years. I think all of those videos are really in the 2000s, 2010s that were released. When these videos got released, there was a lot of talk from the To the Stars Academy about the functionality of these objects and what makes them so special. And they coined a term describing this functionality. They essentially, the flight characteristics of these objects are described in such a way that they cannot be explained through a normal means. So an airplane, a balloon, some sort of natural phenomenon. These objects have these characteristics, such as maneuverability, instantaneous acceleration, the ability to hover, no sound. There are some physiological effects that are associated with them. There was a wonderful report that was released a few years ago out of Europe where they did an analysis of close encounters with these objects, and they found that there were physiological damages done to people. So we'll show you a little clip of that. But essentially, these objects are flying in such strange ways that they cannot be easily described through scientific means. So when the military records these objects, they're analyzed. In 2017, Leslie Kean released some information about the ATIP program, the Advanced Aerial Threat and Identification Program. Essentially, they garner this information and then they analyze it to try to identify the crafts or the objects that are reported. Now, they consider this to be an advanced aerial threat. So you have objects that are doing things in airspace that they consider threatening to our airspace. That's the entire objective of a program who is attempting to identify these phenomena. This case is from Costa, Costa Rica, out of 2007. The reason it's one of my favorite cases is because it was shot using a cell phone camera from a random individual. This object exhibited these characteristics that are described by Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon. So these anomalous flight characteristics. So that shows that this object is flying under a means of propulsion that is unidentified. There's never been any scientist that has created an object, whether it be a prototype or otherwise, that has shown the public how these so-called UFOs and UAPs function. And this report out of Costa Rica in 2007 was picked up by a local news agency. They did an interview with the witness, as well as, I believe, he had another person that was there at the scene that was not a witness, a first-hand witness. But essentially, in November 22nd of 2007 at 3:49 p.m., and we know this because of the data, the metadata from the cell phone footage, this object was seen approximately 50 meters away from a man by the name of Marvin Badia. Now, Marvin Badia was on site as a construction worker, working on a home with a friend of his, William Rivera. Now, in the video, Marvin tries to get William Rivera's attention to this object. He sees it, he pulls out his cell phone camera. It was reported a Motorola Razr camera. I believe it was a flip phone camera, an early flip phone camera. In fact, I believe I personally had a Motorola Razr at the exact same time in 2007 or 2008. Maybe I had a second generation of it. Motorola Razr was a flip phone with a camera, and it had early internet connectivity. So you could actually go to websites on it, but it was a very small screen. It was very, very difficult to read websites. You couldn't really watch videos on it that well. Anyway, So when Marvin saw this object, he pulls out his phone, he starts to record it, and he, in the video, is trying to get the attention of William Rivera. William Rivera is in the background doing construction work. He's using a drill, and you can hear that noise in the film. Many outlets reported that the UFO itself was making that noise, and that is simply not the case. It was a drill, and the object made no noise whatsoever, which is also one of the anomalous flight characteristics, that it has the ability to propel itself without making any sound whatsoever. One of the other characteristics is the ability to rotate or maneuver around its central axis without propulsion. So we have no idea how they're able to do this. The gimbal film, when you talk about a gimbal device where you can move around and something will remain steady, like a camera, many people consider it to be perhaps like a gyroscope, where you have the ability of rotating on its axis with movement in this anomalous way. Anyway, so this case from 2007 was near the town of Tarbaca, and this is in the Central Valley of Costa Rica. Now, there were multiple rapid movements, including 90-degree turns by this object. It was a silver disc-shaped object that Marvin Badia said was about the size of a tractor tire. Now, depending on what kind of tractor he's talking about, you're talking between 5 and 8 foot wide. He considered it to resemble polished aluminum. At one point in the video, it shines, the sun shines off of the object. It reflects really well as it turns. So it clearly has a mirroring effect. It seems to be just a metal disc-shaped object that's hovering not too far away from him. When it made these multiple rapid movements and 90-degree turns, it then instantaneously accelerated in a different direction. Before it does that, it changes direction. So it moves in multiple directions and shoots off what would be considered instantaneously, an instantaneous movement without any sound. Now, after this happened, so he reached out to a news agency, and they eventually interviewed him and broadcasted the video. And I'm going to show you that video now.
William, William, William. C'est histoire. William, William, William. C'est histoire. William, William, William.
Now, that video is one of my favorite videos. A lot of people don't like it because of the poor quality of the cell phone camera, but that is actually one of my favorite parts. When they originally investigated this case, they were able to get the original cell phone footage and look at the metadata, so they know the location it was shot at. The interviewers were able to go to that location and verify via the surroundings, the trees and the mountains, and the area that it was at. So we know the exact location, the exact time, and we know that it was an original copy from the cell phone camera. It hadn't been edited or altered in any way. This is something that I've seen personally from about 8 feet away, where a disked object rotated 90 degrees on its axis. It hovered there at 90 degrees for a moment and then shot off at what could only be described as tens or hundreds of thousands of miles an hour with no noise. This instantaneous acceleration is rarely captured on camera, and especially at this close of a shot. So what do you think? Is the Costa video a real alien craft? Is this a secret government drone of some kind? And if so, why would it simply come down and show itself to a construction worker? If you had this technology and you were a government agency, why would you ever show it to some random person in the jungles of Costa Rica, if you will? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I personally believe that this is a real object. It shows all the characteristics that I've seen personally in my real life, and so many more other people are reporting on as well. If you'd like to support our channel, there'll be links in the description below as well as in the pinned comment. That's the unacceptable news. Don't like, don't subscribe, just run.